in your last role, you were able to learn new things, you were able to build new relationships, gain new wisdom, and all of that. But in that new leadership role, there are new things that I have to learn, new relationships that I have to build, new wisdoms that I have to gain. So what you have to let go of is this idea that you are the expert. You bring in some expertise, but the reason you're in the new role is that they need you to apply that expertise to the new stuff. And so you can't go in with the arrogance of, I'm the expert. Yeah, you are a subject matter expert. Yes, that got you there. But that's not what's going to keep you there, because you came to a new, bigger role that you better get bigger and newer with, or else you're not going to keep being the expert.
What happens when success stops being enough? When the title, the respect, the achievements still leave you wondering, is this all there is? In this episode, Brenda Battle reveals how to recognize that whisper, the one that tells you it's time to let go of what got you here, so you can grow into what's next.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are super duper excited about today's podcast because I don't know about anybody else, but I'm looking for my life to be changed. This is a monumental moment for us. Brenda, I don't know if you know this or not, but you are the first woman to be a guest on Leadership Sovereignty. And let me set the foundation for that, right? When Ralph and I first set out to this, right? You know, in the rooms that we're in, we realized there are not a lot of guys that look like us in these rooms.
Sure.
And we stumbled, ran into brick walls, ran into glass doors that we didn't know were
glass ceilings. Yeah.
All these things, right? And so our goal was, hey, you know, we've been talking for years, let's write a book. And then we were just out getting coffee one day and we were like, hey, let's do a podcast. And so we were like, hey, let's talk to the brothers and let's share with them our experiences. Well, on this journey, our audience started to expand and we started to get feedback. And really what we learned, and you know this, leadership is for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
Regardless of who you're targeting.
That's right.
Look, when it's a universal language and the principles apply to everyone. And so, you know, we've got great feedback. So thank you for being our guest today.
Yes.
Happy to be the inaugural female on the show. Happy to be on the show. So it's not the first time I was the inaugural female.
See,
Or inaugural
look,
female of color.
History repeats itself. History repeats itself. I heard someone say that, and this really touched me. And I'm sure we'll expound on this. But he said history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. I'm like, ooh, that is great.
Yes, it sure does.
And so we want to make sure that the way we're rhyming, right, and flowing is going to help, you know, help us, help others, and, you know, just move society along, right? So we can be better. We can be better. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
And so our topic today, though, is I love this. And the book that we're going to be talking about, I've referenced it before because I'm like, my mentor, that's another thing that makes this special, right? Brenda mentored me, still mentors me.
Yes.
And where I am today is attributed to a lot of what she shared with me. Some, you know, a mentor is going to give you some hard lessons, man. You're going to have some, you know, get those emotions off those sleeves.
Right.
And I appreciated that, right? Because when someone talks to you in love,
yes,
it can be received and it will change you. So again, what we want to talk about today, though, is when you get to that point, right? When you hear that quiet whisper that says, can do more, there's more for you to do. That's the topic of discussion today. That inner voice where you're like, I'm good at what I'm doing now, but should I be doing something different? Should I be doing more? Am I comfortable? So Brenda, I guess for you, how does that, you know, when you hear that, you know, what does that do, or how did you get to that point, right? What was it for you that when you realized, and I got a story around that too, right? Because there's so many intersections here. I can't wait to share it. But how did you, you know, how did that happen for you?
Yeah. Like all my career at least, and I would say some part aspects of just life in general, the need to do more was always kind of this inner feeling. Sometimes I got to where I felt like I did as much as I could do in certain places and it was time to move on. Sometimes I got invited by people to come and do other things, but sometimes it was just an unction in my spirit. And in that I didn't always know what the more was. All that had to be revealed in some way or the other, some way or the other. But I always felt it in my spirit. I always knew when the chapter was closing. A friend of mine, a few years ago, we worked together several years ago before I came to University of Chicago, reminded me that a year before I left that organization, I told her, in another year, I'm not going to be here. Now, I had nothing planned to do. I wasn't looking for a job. And I don't even know at the moment why I said that. I just felt in my spirit that I wasn't going to be there, that I was getting to a
Wow.
point that I just needed more, that it was time to move on. And
Mm,
sure enough, almost a year to the date, I was invited to come to University of Chicago Medicine to do the more there.
mm,
So
Wow.
it's always been kind of an unction that it's time to move on, that you finished a chapter, you close the book. It's time to go on and do the next thing.
Sure.
that's awesome.
Sure.
That's awesome.
That
That's
is, and
awesome.
and so I don't want to skip this, right? So Brenda, you are an amazing person on so many levels, and just want to give the audience, just a few of the things that you've done. Of course, C-suiter, right? National health equity leader. Man, I love this part here, right? Because we all know that the Bible says money answereth all things. Over
Amen.
200 million raised for community health initiatives. Now, listen, I want to say this too. We reference the Bible here, right?
Wonderful.
Mhm,
So if that we don't separate, again,
Good, because
we don't.
that's the only way I operate, because that it's by my faith that I've been able to do what God has allowed me to do.
mhm,
That's awesome. And then great. And that leads us to, man, Lifetime Achievement Award, man, an advisor, a global speaker.
Yeah.
We want to dig into all of that and
Okay.
understand how those experiences have changed you, how being in those rooms, speaking, with, man, I'm sure you've been in a room and you look and go, that's so and so.
Yes.
And I'm right there with them.
Yes.
Right.
And I got nervous for the moment and then had to pray in my spirit and say, Lord, help me to do what you sent me here to do. Yes.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So let's dig a little bit into the next level, right? Scott Eblin, he's the author of that book, and he says that leaders must let go
Mhm.
of what got them there. Kinda dig into that, right? Because you had done, especially after you've accomplished things, right? What do you let go? What do you hold on to? How do you revisit those stories, right? To build a
Yeah.
platform to move you to the next level. Kinda share with that because I'm sure we have, and here's what makes this session amazing as well, right? Because, we want you to speak to the person who is, you know, they've been an executive leader for 10, 15 years, right?
Mhm.
mhm,
And, you get, I don't want to say comfortable, but you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? You're the expert, right? I'll ask this question. How do you deal with yourself when you know you're the expert?
Yeah. Well, so in leadership, every new leadership responsibility is a new job. It's a new
mhm,
responsibility. So what happens is in your last role, you were able to learn new things, you were able to build new relationships, gain new wisdom and all of that. It becomes like a stacking. And that's how I've seen it all my career. That these things stacked up for me so that I can take them into the next leadership role, but not rely on them completely. Because
mhm,
in that new leadership role, there are new things that I have to learn, new relationships that I have to build, new wisdoms that I have to gain. And I can leverage the stacking of what I learned before, but I better be ready to realize that it's not that you have to depend on. You have to depend on being ready for the new things that you have to do in that new role. So
mhm,
what you have to let go of is this idea that you are the expert. You're
mhm,
the expert You bring in some expertise, but the reason you're in the new role is that they need you to apply that expertise to the new stuff so you can do new stuff and gain greater expertise. And so you can't go in with the arrogance of, I'm the expert. Yeah, you are a
Mm,
subject matter expert. Yes, that got you there. But that's not what's going to keep you there because you came to a new, bigger role that you better get bigger and newer with,
mm,
or
Mm,
else you're not going to
mm.
keep being the expert.
mm,
So
Ralph,
mm.
you
that's what you
gotta,
gotta let go of.
yeah, you gotta
I
make sure you cut that one, man. You gotta get bigger and better
yeah,
into your
yeah,
role.
absolutely, absolutely. A follow-up question on that. At what point in your career was the aha moment that what got me here is not going to make me successful in this role, and that I have to go into this looking for the things that I need to learn and accelerate my learning so that I can compete at the highest level?
You know, like God has always placed me into these new roles that I didn't do before.
Mm,
Like I didn't do that before. When I went over to a Barnes Jewish Hospital in St. Louis, I had not done. I went over there to stand up their center, focusing on um uh, uh reducing health disparities and
mhm,
creating a more diverse and inclusive. I had never done that. Now I'd never done it formally. You did some of that as a leader. You're advocating for others, you're advocating for marginalized populations, you're doing all of that, but you hadn't done it formally. So I'd never done that job before. So I say,
mm,
okay, Lord, I've got some skills I'm going to take in here, but I never did this job. Didn't do this job before actually formally. So I had to learn to do that job. And
mm,
so what was humbling about that experience is I had to go and learn how to do that specific work from
mm,
folks that weren't in the industry that I was in, who had
mm,
been doing it longer than me,
mm,
and bring it in with the experience that I had in the healthcare industry and shape that for that industry.
mm,
Then I left there and came to U Chicago Medicine and took over Michelle Obama's role. And guess
mm.
what? I hadn't done that either. Not
Wow,
fully. I've done aspects of
Wow.
it, but not all of it. And then I
wow.
had to and this is where, raising money and all of that, I hadn't done that. God,
Mhm,
God had to like plant me in places. It's very humbling when he does this, where you don't know.
mhm,
Oh, you don't have all the skills that it takes to do the job.
mm,
Mm.
You have some skills.
Ooh, hold on, wait. Can we just let's focus there for a little bit because I think and I wanna kind of get really specific on that. I believe we have a double whammy when it comes to that as being African American leaders.
Yes.
And so can we just dig into that a little bit because you always have that little thing saying, do they trust me?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
do I
And
trust
you
me?
have
I
a
mean,
little bit of
honestly,
imposter syndrome too.
yeah,
Wondering
yeah.
is, ooh, am I really the one? You start sometimes questioning yourself. Am I the one that ought to be doing this? Which is, I'm so glad that I'm a person of faith because you know what? When I ask myself that, God answers that for me. I sent you there. Yeah, you're the one. Quit asking that. Of course you're the one.
I'm glad you said that, right? So I told Shamika Ralph, I said, Shamika, we need to do us because I walk with Shamika in the mornings. And
Mhm.
so we'll talk. I'm like, honey, we may have to start broadcasting. I'll walk and talk. Because she
I
said,
know.
because we were talking, right? And I said, over these last 10 years that I've been in Houston, the only thing that doesn't change are our principles, but our practices and our preferences are mendable.
mm.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Adaptable. You have to be
Yeah.
able to
Yes,
adapt.
adaptable. That's a better word.
Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's good, that's good, that's good.
You gotta have some wisdom and you have to have some experience. And I'm gonna harp on the word humility. You gotta have some humility because sometimes the wisdom doesn't come from you and your experience. It has to come from other folks,
Right,
mentors, and other
Mm.
people who
right.
do know. And so your ability to adapt sometimes has to, makes you have to go out and find somebody and listen and learn
Mm,
and then adapt.
interesting. That's good, that's good. So I love the piece that you talked about moving into spaces that you may not have already had the familiarity with, but there's a reason why, outside of God opening the door, right? There's a
Right.
reason why people are attracted to you and make you available or want you to be available for these opportunities, right?
That's
Can
right.
you talk a little bit about the human connection that you have to really develop as a leader that could open up those doors like that?
Yeah, yeah. This thing about not burning bridges is a real deal. Doesn't mean that you don't stand up, if somebody is like being unjust. It doesn't mean you don't correct when people are not right. It doesn't mean you do that, but you can do that in relationship with people.
Mm.
And so this what happens is people get attracted to your consistency in the relationship.
Oh, that's good.
And that
Mm.
consistency that you display, regardless of how
Mm,
what you have to do in that relationship, that's
mm,
what attracts people to you. That's what says, that's the person
Oh.
who I want to come and do this because the one thing that person is consistent. I know I can trust that person and I know that person is experienced and skilled and can do these things.
mm,
Doesn't matter they can't do everything.
mhm,
They know you're able, you have enough in your toolkit
mhm,
to be able to execute on what it is
mm,
that they have asked you to come for. But you gotta build relationship through consistency
mm,
and trust.
That's good.
That's the
That is
bottom
so
That
line.
good.
is. And
That is
so
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 good.
let me just throw a story on there, right? And this
Mhm.
I can't make this up. I cannot make this up. So we had been living here in Houston maybe 3 years, maybe. And so we get a new neighbor, right? And so they have a couple daughters. So my daughter's excited about it because they're like, oh, all right, girls in the neighborhood. So of
Yeah.
course we go down and introduce ourselves. And the young lady was like, yeah, I moved from Chicago. I'm like, really? I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, okay. I said, my mentor lives in Chicago. And I said, she works at the University of, Chicago, Michigan. She was like, I work there. I'm like, really? I said, do you know Brenda Battle? She was like, yes. I love Brenda. She is so. I'm like, okay, I can't make this up. So
Awesome.
you're consistently, it traveled to Houston.
Thank you for that. Yes, yes,
Wow.
that is so important to
That's
be.
a real story, guys. Like,
I
I'm not
love
kidding. That's a
it.
real story.
I love
That's
it.
awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. Was there a question? Was there ever a moment for you, even in success, that you felt like, you know what? I have just done everything I need to do here, right? I always talk about seasons, right?
Yeah.
A season has a beginning and a season has an end, and the
Mhm.
ability to understand the difference between the two is what defines a person being successful. Because I won't say it's sad, but it's heartbreaking to see. And Terry and I have worked with people in this position where you know that they've passed their season. They should
Yeah.
have left a long time ago, and now they're in an element that doesn't even make sense for them anymore. Can you just kind of talk about that inner sensing of knowing, okay, this is the beginning. It's time to go hard. Okay, I think it's time for me to to hand the reins over to somebody else because the season is ending.
Yeah. Interesting, when I made the decision to retire, that was one of the things that actually was a deciding factor for me.
Mm,
I felt like I had done all that I could do. I felt like there was another level for the organization to go to, and I didn't have the energy or desire to do it. My season was up.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Sovereignty Podcast. If this content blessed or helped you in any kind of way, support us today by subscribing to our YouTube channel, clicking the like button for this episode, and sharing this content with others that you think it will help. Until next time, stay safe, peace, and blessings.